Hey there, Jane Harrington here, independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up, and welcome to my workshop. This video, I'm going to be showing you the 5 things that every stamper needs to get started. I know a lot of you don't know where to start. You look at the catalog and you think it's just such a big world, so I'm going to show you the 5 most important things that you need to get started stamping and paper crafting. So, you've noticed I've used a grid. I'm protecting my workspace here. And Stampin' Up! Does have these grids in the catalog. Now you don't need to have this, but I found I love it. This is, it's a piercing mat, a paper piercing mat. It's called the Stampin Pierce Mat on page 206. It's only $5. What I like about it is not only can you use your piercer to paper pierce, but you can also use it as a surface for stamping. It gives you a better image, but you don't have to have it. I just like it. Okay, so number 1, the very first thing that you need to get started is cardstock. Cardstock is the base for all of our cards for paper crafting. So I'm starting with a piece of Very Vanilla, 8.5 by 11. I grabbed a scrap of white, Whisper White cardstock, and a little scrap of Rich Razzleberry. So those are the papers I'm going to be using. I'm also going to be featuring this paper here, which comes in the Tea Room Specialty Designer Series paper on page 15. It's $14, and you get 24 sheets. It's 12 by 12. It's double-sided. I'm going to be using this side today. So the first thing we're going to do is our cardstock. We got to prepare our cardstock. So this is our Very Vanilla. The second thing that every paper crafter needs is some kind of cutter or trimmer. This is my Stampin Trimmer. It's $30. You can find it on page 208 of the catalog. And what I love about this trimmer, aside from the fact that it is huge, look how big this thing is. It's got the nice fold-out arm, and you can see all of the numbers or the measurements are numbered. We have our score blade and our cutting blade. And you can lock this in place so you can't raise this up. And also, let me show you on the back, I'm trying to do this one-handed here, there's a space to keep your extra supplies. So I love this trimmer, it's amazing. It's really rocked my world with paper crafting. So let me see if I can get it in here to show you. We have an 8.5 and 11 by 11 piece of cardstock. And we're going to get 2 cards out of this. We're only going to make one, but this is going to cut down to 2 cards. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide this in. So you know it's 11 inches long. Half of 11 is 5.5. So we're going to come here to the 5.5 line. I don't need my score right now. I'm going to move that up. So here is my cutting blade. So we're at 5.5. Can you see that? All we're going to do is move the blade. Now we have 2 perfect size pieces of cardstock. See, I'm going to set one aside. We only need the one for now because we're only making 1 card. So now we need to score it. You know, you can bend it, but it'll leave you those ugly bend marks, and so we want to put a score mark in it. Half of this would be 4 1/4, so I find the 4 1/4 mark and I line up there, and I'm going to use my score blade just to put a perfect score mark in it. Can you see the line there? And when we fold this card, it's going to fold perfectly and beautifully. And there we go. That's the base of our card when we start to make a card with cardstock, okay? I'm going to put this aside for now. The next thing I need is I'm going to take my piece of scrapbook paper. And any scrapbook paper will do, but I've chosen this one. Now, I guess I need to bring this back for a second. There are many ways to measure. I'm just going to use the old-fashioned way. I'm going to take my paper. I just want this to be my background. So I'm going to line it up with my card, and I'm going to have a little bit of the vanilla stick through. I'm just going to mark where I want to cut, right there and right there. Okay, so I'll move that aside again. When I come back over here, all I do is I'm going to cut on those marks that I made. It might be hard to see in the video, but there's a mark here. I cut along, move that piece aside. You can use scissors and a ruler and a pencil. You can do that. This just makes it so much faster and easier. There we go. Now I've got my perfect cut background, okay? It's very simple to do. I'm going to move my extra cardstock aside. The next thing I'm going to do, now that I've got this part done, that's going to be my background. So I need the second most important thing, which is my image. I'm going to be using stamps because I'm a rubber stamper. So I'm going to use a stamp set. Now, let me show you. Stampin' Up! Has 3 different kinds of stamps. This is the classic stamp set. It is wood mounted. As you can see, it's red rubber mounted on wood. And this is, you know, the old way we used to do it. That's all of my stamp collection over 20 years. I got a lot of stamps. Now, this is the old-fashioned way, but it's a classic way. A lot of people just prefer using red rubber on wood mounted stamps. They're easy to grip and so on. The problem is they take up a lot of room. So let me move this one aside. This, by the way, is Lovely as a Tree, which is still, this was a 2001 copyrighted stamp, but this stamp is still current. It's still around. It's one of the few that is still current. So that's the red rubber. You also, some stamps will give you an option. You can see at the bottom of, here, let me show you. The bottom of the catalog is going to tell you what kind of stamp set it is. This particular one, Time for Tea, which is featured in the Tea Room Suite that I've been using a lot this week. This one is, you need the blocks because it says 13 photopolymer stamps. Not all of them come in photopolymer. Some, let's see, you can choose. This one either comes in the wood blocks or, and this would be the 9 rubber stamps, which I'm about to show you. So the photopolymer stamps look like this. They're clear, they're see-through. Let me see if I can open this one-handed here. They'll come on a cling card, and they cling, and you just peel them up like so. So these are the photopolymer stamps. I love these because you can see right through them. They do stain a little bit, but I mean, if you clean them, it's not, the stain is not going to hurt your stamp. The other way that our stamps come, this one, these are the red rubber, but they're cling stamps. And so what you would need for both the cling and the photopolymer is an acrylic block. Now Stampin' Up! On, let's see, on page 206, Stampin' Up! Has a selection of different sizes. I'm going to show you. Here is, we have a wonderful carrying case, which is $17, and it just pops open. You can carry all of your different size acrylic blocks, and you don't need every single size. I've been collecting mine up for the last few years now. These are all the different sizes. So for this particular project, I'm going to choose the D and the, I think it's C. I believe that's right. So I just pop those out. I'm going to move my case aside for now. So these are the particular acrylic blocks that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to set Time for Tea aside. We're going to be using Tea Together. The Tea Together set is found in the Occasions Catalog on page 49. So I'm going to choose this particular teapot stamp. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Beauty and the Beast. Okay, and all I do is I press it on and it's going to cling right there. Now the old cling stamps, you know, were more difficult to cling. You used to have to use maybe some chapstick to get them to cling, but the new ones, they have a sticky adhesive and it sticks right to it and it peels up. It's removable, but it doesn't lose its stickiness, and so it's a lot easier to get them on and off. Okay, so here's my Whisper White scrap that I had before. I'm going to grab this Memento pad in black. Stampin' Up! Does no longer have its own black color, but we do sell the Memento and the Stays On pad. So to ink this up, I'm going to turn this over since it's a big stamp. And I'm just going to ink it like so. You can see the ink is going onto the red rubber. Just make sure it's inked all over. And then all you do, notice I'm using the Stampin Pierce Mat just to give myself a better, clearer image. All I do is I line it up where I want it, I press down, and lift up, and there I have a beautiful image, okay? So, your first is cardstock. That's the #1 thing you need. The second is a stamp set. And it doesn't matter what kind you're using. the ink pad obviously is the third thing. You need an ink pad. So an ink pad, a stamp set, and cardstock. Those are your most important things. Now, there are several ways to clean your stamp. Notice it still has ink on it. I will show you one way. This is the Stampin Scrub. The Stampin Scrub is available on, let's see, I did not write that one down, but it's in the back of the catalog. I'm just going to spray it with the Stampin' Mist, and on one side. So we're going to scrub it on the one side. This is the wet side. And then on this side, we come over to this side and we'll dry it. Whoops. We'll dry it on this side. And then our stamp is clean and it's ready to go for another color. So you don't have to use a Stampin' Scrub. If you would prefer, you can use a baby wipe. Try to use the non-alcoholic because the alcohol will damage the red rubber over time. You can also use, we have a new chamois in the back. If you prefer to clean your stamps that way. Okay, so I'm going to put tea time aside. Now we've got this image here, okay, and we want to cut it out. Now you can use scissors like these Stampin' Snips, or you can use the Big Shot, which I'm going to talk about in another video. I went ahead and cut mine out with the Big Shot to save some time. And so now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we're going to color this in. Now there are a lot of different ways. We have a lot of coloring tools. Again, I'll feature those in another video. So one way you can do it is using colored pencils. You know, we have our watercolor pencils. You can use watercolors. You can use our Stampin' markers. There are a lot of things you can do. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to take my Rich Razzleberry stamp pad. Now, these are Stampin' Up's classic stamp pads. These are fantastic. This year, they have redesigned them. So what they do is they pop open. They, as you can see, they store the ink pad upside down. It keeps the top of the ink pad juicy for you, okay? If you have regular old stamp pads like this at home, make sure you store them upside down to keep the top of your ink pad juicy. So we're going to slide that open. So something else you'll notice about Stampin' Up's ink pads is this is a foam pad. They no longer use the fabric pads like the old ink pads. And I'll tell you what, once you start using these foam pads, you will never want to stamp with anything else. Again, I'm protecting my surface. Now, notice this sponge here. I cut it in. This is what the sponges look like. We have 3 in a pack for $3.50 on page 203. And so you'll get 3 of these. Now, I like to cut mine down so that they're, whoa, dropped my camera, so that they're easier to hold on to, see? And you get more surface area. You can use more parts of the sponge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load the sponge with a little bit of ink. Just, I don't need a lot. You can see it's kind of going on there. And I'm going to dab around the stamp to give it some color. Whoops, here I'm dropping it again. There we go. Okay, so you see how I'm sponging on the color, okay? Just like so. I'm going to leave a little bit of light color in the middle, and I'm going to go darker around the edges. And you can also scrub like so. See, so you can actually use these sponges as an actual coloring tool. You see, depending on what, how you want your color to look. So I'm just kind of scrubbing it on like that, okay? There we go, and I'm satisfied with that. Kind of gives it a neat little bit of maybe an antique look, I guess you could say. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my C-size acrylic block, and we're going to go back to this Tea Together stamp set, and I'm going to grab this particular flower. I'm going to stick it on. Notice it clings right away. So I'm going to load my stamp pad. Okay, see it's right on there. And I'm just going to stamp off of the image just to make it a little bit lighter. And I'll line it up where I want it, and I'll stamp down. And see, it's going to give me a stamped image right on there. And I'm going to go over here, stamp around it a little bit, maybe do one more over here off the side, and maybe one up here on the lid, okay? And, what the heck, I'll do one more. Can't have too many flowers. There we go. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. So I'm going to close up my ink pad. There we go. And I'm going to clean my stamp. Scrub, scrub, dry, dry, and it's ready to go. I peel it off, stick this back on, and there we go. Okay, so I'll close up my stamp set. Okay, so I am satisfied with the coloring of this. It didn't take very long at all. I think it looks really pretty. So let's come back over here to remember our vanilla cardstock. Okay, so here's our background. And you know what? I want to do one more thing to this. I just thought of something. I think it's going to make it look really pretty. I'm going to take my paper and rub the edges. Can you see? I'm just rubbing the edges on the ink pad, like so. And it's going to give me a nice edge with ink, so it makes it look like it was meant to be that way. See how I'm doing that? I'm just rubbing it along the edges. And this does not have to be perfect because you kind of want it to have a little bit of unevenness there. Can you see there? Now I'm going to come back and take this and just add in a little bit of color just around the edges. And this kind of makes it look like it was meant to be this way. See here? Just go all the way around the edges like so. And then that color, it's the same ink pad, the rich razzleberry, it's going to match with this when we put that on there. See, same color. Rich razzleberry is a really gorgeous color. It matches a lot of things. So, there we go. There's our background. There's our stamped image. Now, there are several ways that you can add a sentiment. You can maybe put this piece of cardstock behind and stamp something on there. You can take a stamp like this. I've already stamped in white Happy Mother's Day. This is our white craft ink. And it does have to either dry, you can heat set it to dry, or you can leave it, sit for a few minutes and it'll dry. Otherwise it'll smudge, because you can also emboss with the craft ink. So maybe you like it that way. Let's see, we'll go ahead and use this one. You could also, if you wanted to, like I said, you can just slide this in and stamp your sentiment, whoops, right there, and that would give you a gorgeous card as well. But remember I said there are 5 things we need. We talked about our cardstock, we talked about our cutter or our trimmer, we talked about our stamp set, we talked about our ink pad. The number 5 thing you need is your adhesive. And so this is a tape runner. This is mono adhesive. And I use this all the time. So let me just show you real quick how we're going to adhere everything. So I'm going to turn it over and I'm just going to run my adhesive along the edges. You see how it's gliding right on? This is very quick and easy, and it's not messy, so even kids can do this. So I'm just going to attach my background right like so. There, now my background is glued on. Simple. Okay, now for this one, I could glue that on with the tape runner as well, but I'm going to use some Stampin Dimensionals to make it pop off the page. These are some of my Stampin Dimensionals. As you can see, I use them a lot. I'm getting low on this particular card. So what I do is I just peel these off. They're like a sticker. Stick them on. I'm going to use about 4 of them. They also come in a mini size. I might want to use a mini size up there, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to do so. So you just peel this off, and it gives you a sticky back. And what this does is it makes your image pop off the page. So here we go. I'm going to stick this right here. And now you notice there's some dimension underneath the image and it's still sticking, okay? The Dimensionals are on page 213. They're only $4 for a big pack of them. You get several of these cards in a pack, so you get quite a few. The last thing I'm going to do, I think I'm going to go ahead and use this one. And I'm going to use some Dimensionals on it as well. So I'm going to stick 2 Dimensionals on this one, like so. I peel off the sticky back. See, stamping does not have to be difficult. There we go. I'll stick it just like so. Here we go. Now, if you wanted to go a step further, maybe you want to use some ribbon in there. So perhaps we're going to take, this is Calypso Coral color. Notice it matches the colors in the scrapbook paper. You could run this through and put some ribbon on the back. I'm not going to do that particularly, but one thing I found that is easier to do if you ever do this, if you want to make a strip of ribbon like so, you cut it to size, and you can even use the tape runner to glue it on, the mono adhesive. I usually make my ribbon separate, my little bow. So I might put the bow right over here. It's easier for me to glue it down if it's separate. Maybe you don't want this ribbon string behind. Maybe you just want to glue that right on like so, or over here, however you want to do it. See, cards are easy because you can customize however you like them. So very simple to make this card. All you need is cardstock, a cutter, a stamp set, an ink pad, and adhesive. And if you really want to make your cards pop, you can use some kind of embellishment like ribbon, but you don't have to do so. Cards are still beautiful even without that. One thing I didn't mention is you'll notice this particular oval, I pre-cut this. I used my Big Shot, and let's see if I have where I put it. Well, I don't have it lying around, but the Big Shot has dies like this, and they're metal dies, and what they do is they cut out the images for you. Now this particular one, Tea Time, coordinates with Tea Together. So whoops, so you'll see these stamp sets, or these stamped images, all you do is, if you have a Big Shot, this saves you a tremendous amount of time, because these are metal dies, and notice they cut out the individual image. It saves you so much time. You don't have to cut this out yourself. So I really, really love my Big Shot. I'll show you all about the Big Shot in another video. But this particular Big Shot set that coordinates with Tea Together is actually a free item with Celebration right now. So if you spend $100, you can choose that for free to coordinate with this stamp set. It's a wonderful deal. All right, so if you have any questions, let me know. You can leave a question in the comments, or you can go to my Facebook page. I'll leave the links in the video link. If you have any questions at all, you can also email me at tumbleweedcrossing@gmail.com. So there you have it. I will also leave you in the comments my workshop number. If you would like to order from my workshop, you can visit stampinup.com, and you can type in my host code when you check out, and I will get credit for it. And you can also, if you would like, if you live in the Birmingham area, I would be more than happy to do a workshop for you in person. So I will see you in the next video.